Hello everyone and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is October the 25th of 2023, the last Wednesday of October, which means it's Halloween. That's how this works.
Aw.
What, do you have something to add?
Oh no, I wouldn't want to say, I didn't want to interrupt. I was just suggesting that's correct.
Oh, great.
I don't think we've been introduced. My name is Gakuro. My dad's dead. And I have a sister, and we're not related by blood.
Okay.
Ah!
I feel like this is kind of awkward because I feel like I'm dressed as like the superior version of you.
What do you mean? I've never read Bleach before. Not that I know what it is. I don't know what you are.
You don't I don't recognize your dress.
I've never seen you before in my life.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to know that you have a sister that's not related to you by blood.
It's hot.
I'm glad to know that you feel that way.
I don't say it, other people do. Everyone around me, everyone's always seeing my sister, and I'm like, not my sister related by blood. And they're like, that's hot. Sometimes I walk in and get groceries, and I forget I drop all the eggs, but I still buy them anyway. All I really needed was the shell. And then I go up to the cashier, and they're like, do you have a sister that's not related to you by blood? I'm like, I do. And they say, that's hot. And then they slap me usually. And I accept it. That's what I deserve.
Wait, so they're so turned on by the thought of you having a sister that's not related to you by blood that they decide to express it by getting violent with you.
I think they're impressed that I have a sister who's attractive, who's not related by blood, and then they kind of realize who I am, and they just get really angry. They get really upset with my existence. And I don't blame them.
I have to talk about a cat manga with someone today.
I've read it. I read every part of it. It's gonna be great.
Oh no. This a side of Gakuro I wasn't prepared for.
Wow, sometimes Gakuro can turn it down a little bit. He'll turn it back up when he needs to.
Oh.
Also, this voice can only go so long.
Yeah. I don't have a Hollow Ichigo impression at all.
Now,
I can't do it.
It is worth noting that I did a bonus, or not a bonus podcast, a credits episode for Dice Funk recently. And I did it last year as well as the Spookmaster General. But like last year, I started the bit and then kind of stopped it. This time, Little Dan joined me and also did a creepy voice. And it kind of became like a mutual pact we were stuck in that neither of us would drop the voice for the full hour plus podcast.
So it was either like a pact where you each held each other to doing the bit all the way through, or it was a game of chicken.
It was a little of both. It was kind of like, if I'm not going to drop it, then you're not going to drop it. So I'm not going to drop it.
Well, unfortunately for me, this is stuff that I can't just just get rid of. Like I have to go and apply like a solvent to in order to get off my fucking face.
Yeah, there's a solution that has to go into your costume. I can rip this stupid thing off if I want.
Yeah, aren't you lucky?
I would.
I didn't realize, because Gakuro's just in his uniform all the time.
I was like, this is really easy. I just searched for green spiky wig, and then I bought a shirt that I'm going to give to Austin afterwards.
Oh my god. It's Halloween spooky time, guys. And the scariest thing of all is we don't have that many manga chapters to discuss today. But we do have a series that we've been reading over the last couple of weeks that is spooky themed. It is called The Walking Cat, or it's got like a full title in the English localization, I believe, which I don't know off the top of my head. It's like a cat's eye view of the zombie apocalypse. So it's a 3-volume long series, kind of short, and I thought it was actually going to be a very quick read when I saw it, and a lot of it is, but once you get about a third of the way through, suddenly it does become a lot more story-oriented, and it does start off as just like tales of just a cat.
This is what happens if you put a cat in apocalypse, zombie apocalypse.
Yep, that's it. Just little tidbits from how it deals with things, how it interacts with people, how it just kind of keeps on being a cat, even in the face of the zombie apocalypse. But then from there, it develops into not just like, oh, this is the story of this cat. It is the story of how this cat influences and affects 3 different human protagonists through the course of the story. And at first it seems like it's just going to be little adventures with this one guy, but then it turns into, okay, yeah, there were some adventures with that guy, and then what happens. And then it's hanging out with a girl in this one shelter where they're safe from the zombies, at least temporarily, and then the cat is estranged from her when an outbreak happens, and instead goes along with one of the kids who survives that outbreak, who feels like indebted to her and decides that he needs to reunite the cat with her. And it's about what those 3 people go through, while our hero, Yuki, the little white kitty, just keeps on going and does not ever really seem to grasp the danger that it is constantly in.
I mean, yeah, this cat is both very relaxed, as you would assume a cat would be during the zombie apocalypse, and also like comically like combat ready. Nick, this is a good way for me to connect to Gawker. Here's the embarrassing thing that I did as a child. Okay. I remember writing a spooky ghost story as a child, and I really like cats. I liked my cat, so my character in the story had a cat that they brought along with them. And when the ghost attacked them once, I had my character let the cat out of their cat carrier, and the cat attacked and fought the ghost off. And
hell yeah!
I'm like, this is a little silly. Like, why would a cat? They're not like an attack dog, but whatever. That is essentially what this cat does. Like, someone will come at the owner, and this cat's like, I don't trust you one fucking second. And they'll immediately start like, it'll start like karate chopping eyeballs. Like, it'll fucking like immediately like roundhouse a zombie in the throat to be like, get out of here. And I'm like, this is crazy.
This is a very aggressive cat. Like, in all of the situations where you would want it to be a protector, it really rises to the occasion. Because usually, of course, when cats like fight people, it's either like because they're being specifically attacked and they go turn into a crazy ball of fur and claws and just wind their bodies around every which way and slash at everything, or they'll make like they're gonna do that and they're just gonna go like, oh, I'll mess you up.
Yeah,
I'll mess you up.
Don't come close. Don't come any closer.
And if you take one step towards them, they run away.
Yeah. It is worth noting this is a stray cat. It bonds with people and travels along, but its origin before that was a stray cat. So usually strays have a little bit, like they've been into fights, so there is something there. Like there would maybe be a difference from your like cat that you've owned since a kitten that's just lived indoors its entire life. Maybe that one won't be as combat ready, but right. It is a little amusing how much this cat's great at a throwdown the second one starts.
And it is, for the most part, it feels like just kind of like little charming things of like, oh, look at this cat. He's doing fine. He's doing great, even in the face of all this. But it does become much more a story of like, I mean, this is a zombie apocalypse that is happening. And it's not about like, oh, what happened? Oh, how are we going to solve this? it is about the little people who are caught in this situation and how they deal with the world collapsing and going to shit to hell around them, and trying to just make their way through that horrible thing that's happening. And each of our three heroes in some way really, really benefits from having Yuki around. Really just to kind of ground them and give them something to like hold on to that's not just like I need to survive. It's like, no, I need to this is like kind of that thing that's keeping them human, giving them something small to focus on so that they don't collapse in the face of the much bigger thing that they're trying to accomplish, which is surviving in this unsurvivable world.
Yeah, I think there's a fun dichotomy that kind of exists in there, because you do get the start of this series, which is very much like a simple like, what if we had to, do this in a zombie apocalypse, but you had a cat, or like, here's a cat thing that would happen in a zombie apocalypse. How would you handle it? Like, oh, I was kind of mean to the cat. Now he's gonna vomit on my backpack. Like, get out! Oh, stop that! And then later on, it's like I just witnessed a horrific act of humanity, and now I'm going to return home to my cat for comfort, which are both really the dichotomy of owning a cat. Like there's quite a lot of times where I'm just like, oh my god, you are an infuriating piece of my life, and then there's another part that's like, without you, I would crumble into dust.
Right. I think that it's kind of hard to actually to talk about the series in full without discussing spoilers because it's a zombie apocalypse manga. So I will just say that if you like cats and if you're okay with zombie stuff, then you should give this a try. If you're like, no, zombies freak me out, and it's like, well, there's zombies in it. If you like cats, read this manga.
Yeah. I will clarify, because this is a concern I had going into it, that even though this is a zombie apocalypse sort of series, the cat is never like in danger. Like, you're never gonna have to be like, I swear to fucking god, if something happens to this motherfucking cat. Series is 40 chapters long. The cat's fine at the end of it. Like, let me just state that. And that also does help to kind of establish the tone that this is not like the most bleak sort of zombie apocalypse series that's out there. This is definitely one that's going to be digestible. I think this would be relatively PG-13, if you were to make this into a movie. So I think that does help to establish what kind of tone and what to sort of expect when you're going into this, because you never know. Some zombie apocalypses are horrendous. You're like, oh, this is worse than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a couple of situations where you're like, oh no, Yuki, but it's like, he's fine.
Yeah,
he's fine. He gets to the end of the series just fine.
Yeah, there was a moment where it was like, oh my god, I think the cat's dead, and I was like, there's another 12 chapters of this. I don't think that cat's dead.
Yeah. So I guess just kind of go through quickly the three different characters. First one is Jean. He is like the one like adult character that we follow. His big thing is that he's been separated from his wife during all of this. He's trying to find his way to her. And
Makoto, is it?
Her name is Satoko. And so I kind of thought that the series was going to be basically just bits like he has with Yuki, which is he meets someone, has a little interaction with them, and moves on. Like they interact with Yuki in some way, and maybe they run into a situation with some zombies. They get away, and they just go on. Just little snippets happen, and that is the way things go for most of his run as the deuteragonist, because Yuki's the protagonist.
Yeah, we're here for that cat. We're here for that good ass cat, Nick.
And like he runs into like a guy who is in like who works as like a lab technician, and they get attacked by zombies, and the cat and Yuki leads them out onto this very dangerous outside path up the side of the building so that they can get to the safety. And he's really just doing it because he's a cat and he's just wandering around. They meet some kids and stuff. but the whole time, Gene is trying to make his way to his wife, who he learns has found her way to this safe haven on an island off the coast of mainland Japan. So he's goes to the docks to get a boat so that he can row his way out there to safety. But as he's going, the backpack that he's keeping Yuki in gets taken off of him, and he's like, I can make it. I can make it to that boat, and I'll outrun the zombies, and I'll be fine. But Yuki's there, and
he's like, I'm not letting
back.
this fucking cat go.
Can't let the cat go. He goes back and he saves Yuki, and he ends up getting bit. And I was like, how dare you?
I was in such a depressed mood when I was reading this, and I remember just saying, like, why the fuck am I reading this stupid fucking thing? It's gonna make me fucking feel bad. Because it's very heartbreaking. There's like an extra layer of like added twist that like had he kept going, he would have reunited with his wife. Like,
yeah,
it was like he just misses her kind of thing, and instead he's gonna turn into a zombie, and it's like,
yeah.
No, it's very sad.
So yeah,
I was Gakko. Oh,
cat dad's dying.
Oh, my cat dad.
So he instead leaves Yuki on the beach of the island and pushes himself back out off to sea before he fully turns into a zombie, so he doesn't endanger anyone. And Yuki instead comes across this teenage girl named Kaoru, who ends up taking him in, and he lives with her on this island shelter where people are safe. There's a bunch of stuff that like is alluded to in a few different ways, like the politics of the leadership of the community gets brought up a lot, and it's really, but it's
so irrelevant.
It really is, and it really just comes across as like, okay, so this would have just been like the human villain of the zombie movie in a couple of cases, just a straightforward bad guy who's like, we can't let people over here.
Yeah, there's like an entire elaborate thing kind of like alluded to several times throughout the sequence on the island, which is like, yes, there's like whole rules and all these negotiations. And Kaoru's like, I want to leave the island, but I also want to become strong enough to join like the hunting teams, so I could be like kind of respected. And there's all these elements that just aren't relevant because we leave the island before any of them really come to fruition. There's like a character called like the Master or something like that, I think they just call him, and he's like wants to be friends with the cat, and there's like a leader of the village, and yeah, like all these things, like these characters exist, but it's not something we spend a ton of time with.
Yeah,
we spend a lot more time with Yuki, which is a positive in my book.
Mm-hmm. The only characters that really matter in that sequence are the Master, because he loves cats. He loves, he's this, this really hard grizzled guy, but he loves cats so much, and he just wants to snuggle Yuki. And of course, in typical cat fashion, the more affectionate you try to be towards them, the more they're like, no, not into that.
Get out of here. I don't trust you. You have to stop.
There's like a bonus story at one point where they're like, why don't you just like let Yuki come to you? And so he instead like holds very still, and of course Yuki gets in his lap. He's like, yay! He picks him up and like snuggles his face into him, and Yuki's like, no! She pushes off.
Inversely, later on, they have like a group of characters who are all like, oh, I love this cat, and then there's one person's like, I fucking hate this cat, and of course that's who Yuki wants to spend time with. He's like, I want to hang out with you.
Obviously, this is a story by a cat owner. Yeah. Like, there's no way.
There's a lot that you're like, yeah, I've experienced this exact situation with my cat. The pettiness, like I made a reference to it, but there is like a thing where he says something annoys Yuki in some way, and Yuki responds by going over to his backpack to vomit. He's like, no, don't vomit in my backpack. And he moves it, and the cat just gives him a glare and stops vomiting. I didn't need to throw up. I just wanted you to know that I don't like you.
There's a guy that's in the community named Billy, who is this like medical student who is a few years older than Kaoru, and she is crushing on him like crazy. And then there is Kaoru's. Oh, and I should say, Satoko is on the island.
Yes.
Like, she made it there safely. There is a bizarrely semi-heartbreaking and also inspiring moment that she gets where they like come across Jean's like backpack, like they come across the boat that he, took off back off on, but they don't find his body, and she sees his wallet and stuff and realizes that, oh, he's, been bitten by a zombie. But she starts crying and starts to fall apart, but then she's like, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to believe it until I actually see his body. I'm not going to believe that he's gone. And it's like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta keep the hope alive.
Yeah.
But the big thing that's going on in this sequence is Kaoru's relationship with her mother, who was in an abusive relationship with Kaoru's dad, and is now in a new abusive relationship. And like one of Kaoru's big drives is, I don't want to end up like my mother does. I want to be strong. I want to be able to take care of myself, and I want to be able to not be controlled and abused by anyone. This is the real content warning of this series, by the way, is that there is like some really, really harsh depictions of like what goes on in some abusive relationships, and it's not fun, and it's viewed from the outside, of course, because it's through Kaoru's eyes. But that was definitely the most uncomfortable stuff, way beyond any normal zombie stuff that happens in this series. I felt
that's by far the darkest the series really gets.
And in a nice turn of events, Kaoru and Billy are able to get proof that the guy is violent, because he ends up attacking Kaoru. He ends up attacking Billy when he comes to defend her, and they use Billy's injuries to prove that he's been, attacking people. And they're like, "Okay, get out." And they cast him out of their community, so he'll be eaten by zombies. It's like, good, fuck that guy.
Yeah, it's like, again, effective, quick leadership. Like, again, like we established, there's leaders in here, and there are like politics to it. None of it matters. They're just like, yeah, dude, this dude sucks. He's out.
Yeah. Because the bad thing that happens is they accept some new survivors to come into the community, and one of them is a mother whose daughter has been bitten, and she's
hiding it.
She's hiding it. She's like in denial that anything bad is going to happen. That like she's like, no, it's still my daughter, and it's endangering people, of course. And eventually, she starts biting people. A huge outbreak happens. There's people running around. Stuff gets set on fire. The guy who was abusing Kaoru's mom comes back, and he's still an asshole. And freaking leadership, the politics and the leadership, they start like turning on each other and stuff. None of that matters. What matters is Kaoru's trying to survive and protect her mom, and she's got Yuki with her, and that's all that matters. Everything is on fire.
Yeah, everything's chaotic, but don't worry, I got my cat and my mom. That's all I need.
Billy ends up getting bitten, and he takes his own life so that he doesn't turn into a zombie and attack more people. And there's a really cold, like, this is like Kaoru turning into a bitter adult moment where she gets to confront the mother who took her daughter onto the island after she had bitten. And it's like, look, I don't blame you for loving your daughter, but if you hadn't done what you did, then the man that I love would still be alive. It's like, Jesus. Because she's right,
Yeah.
But during the fire and everything, Yuki gets separated from Kaoru, and it's really, really, really terrifying because it's like, no, the one thing that was getting her through all these awful circumstances is separated from her. But she does survive, and so does Yuki, who ends up with another member of the little group that was joining the community, along with the woman with the zombified daughter, who is our last protagonist, Seiichi, whose story is, I think, easily the weakest.
We start with him in the oddest place, which is stuck on the island. And then it becomes like, oh, what if you had to form a union with other people? Which is intriguing, like being the new guy in a group of survivors. And then it just kind of ends.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because he's like, I owe everything to this cat, so I'm going to do everything to reunite this cat with its owner. And there's not like a level of like catharsis to ever come about, which is like, oh, that's like an insanely daunting task in the middle of this zombie apocalypse. The series is relatively optimistic about things. But that is going to be his primary motivation, is he's just like, I have to, this cat saved my life, I have to get it to its owner, basically. Like, I have to let the owner know the cat's okay.
I would be remiss if I did not bring up that during his escape from the island, he gets bitten by a zombie on the arm and immediately cuts the arm off so that he doesn't become infected. So there's our Bleach moment of this series.
That's why Nick stressed like a Shinigami.
Yes.
Yep. I know what your series is about. It's about ghosts.
Technically, yes.
See? You can't sue me.
You're not wrong.
You don't know my lawyer's name. You can't sue me.
I guess Shinigami is not a copyrighted term. You got me there, Gakuro.
Score one for Gakuro. First points on the board in my life.
Oh, man. Yeah, Seiichi ends up joining with this group of, like, really angry, teenagers who were like, we don't trust adults, because they were all screwed over by adults in their own lives in various different ways. And they're like, we don't trust any adults. All adults are kill on sight, basically. Which, like, I mean, I understand not trusting adults, but
there is like an attitude that these kids have, because they do get attacked at one point. Like they get tricked by somebody who's faking an injury, and they get like held up, basically. But these kids have like fucking like military training, it feels like, because they all instantly drop to their knees and cut the Achilles tendons of their, like, the people trying to like hold them captive.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. They're like, yeah, these guys will make all this noise, attract the zombies, and then they can't possibly run away while we escape. But they all do it like in sync. And I was like, this is unnerving how well you guys are. This is clearly not your first rodeo.
So they are all going along with Seiichi, and the entire time, like, one of them is saying, like, oh, Seiichi's like dead weight because he's got one hand now, so he can't do as much physical work as the others. But he's like started to earn their trust in different ways, and they're like, all right, well, there's this compound here. Maybe we can take shelter in the compound. The problem is that the guy who owns the compound is a convicted murderer.
Yeah, they see the guy as a peg leg, and they're like, that's the peg leg killer.
The hash-slinging slasher is the one who owns this establishment. And it turns out, yes, he did kill a bunch of people, but it was actually because the people he killed were bad.
Yeah, he killed a bunch of people because they had already killed a bunch of people and were going to kill him. So by circumstance, he killed people, but not as many as the stories would lead you to believe.
Because they killed a bunch of people, he got blamed for all of those deaths as well.
And the way they want you to know that this is a good guy is he has a cat. No evil person would have a cat, Nick.
Not at all. None. Ignore all those James Bond villains out there. That's just anti-cat propaganda.
Only a pure of heart person could own a cat.
That's just propaganda right there. Is people who want you to have dogs and not cats.
When I adopted Professor Peanuts, one of the parts of the application is they actually took my heart out of my chest and they weighed it on a scale against a feather.
Against the feather.
And depending on the results, like, you can take this cat home or you can't. or you're damned to eternity. And I was like, I want this cat.
Good to know that shelters take that level of precaution with people. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, I found a good shelter. Guy had like an alligator head. It was pretty dope.
Well, on his body, or
he had like a human body, but like a big alligator head.
Okay. So they decide, like, we gotta kill this guy and just take his house. Yeah. And Seiichi, this is your rite of passage. You kill him. And it's like, this seems like a bad time to do this with this guy is dangerous. Let's put the killing blow in the hands of the kid who has never killed before. And also, has one hand. It seems like a bad time.
Yeah. It's a weird move. Also, they don't really kick it off on the best note.
No,
like they
are
kind of
like
bumble
deliberately
it from the start.
Like, this guy is like, get off my property. And they're all like, fuck you, old man. And Seiichi is like, oh, you have cats. Isn't that great? He's like, all right, you can stay for one night.
It's very funny that like they came in with such like exquisite military training when it came to like dismembering those dudes' Achilles tendons, but when it came to like getting this guy, they really kind of were just like, get him, because he kind of gets a little bit of the jump on them.
Yes.
But they just overwhelm him with sheer numbers, and
then they're like, Seiichi, kill him.
Yeah,
do
like,
it.
The cats.
He's got...
he has a cat. You can't kill a person with a cat. I
mean,
what are we, monsters? Are we the zombies? Hey, guys, maybe this is the moral of this story. Maybe we're the real monsters here.
Admittedly, like, it's not just any cat. It's like a cat that he and a girl he was like best friends with, like raised together until he got separated from them and stuff. So he's like, we took care of the cat that means so much to kid me and stuff, guys. So he refused to do it. He stops all the fighting and stuff, and the very violent teenagers are like kicked out. And they're just like, fuck you, Seiichi. It's like, all right.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, it ends very like, all right then. There's no like you would expect there to be like a tense moment, or just them being like, we're not gonna let this fucking go. We're gonna kill this guy or something like that. But they really like they kind of get their shit pushed in a little bit, and like, all right, fair enough. You win this round, kid. We're gonna leave, and you'll never see us again.
Pretty much. And that's just the end of the series, really. There's a wrap-up where we touch base with a lot of the characters that we had met throughout Yuki's story. And, like, several months go by while Seiichi stays with this old man who, is like, hey, we've bonded over, not both of us having lost a limb, both of us really liking cats. And also... you didn't murder me when those kids were telling you to, so it's pretty good.
we found common ground, and like we have three things that are in interest: cats, missing limbs, me not being killed. Like I feel like we have nothing but things to talk about. So we should start a podcast, honestly.
And so we check in on like a few different people. Like Kaoru has basically seemingly gone on to actually get to the point where she's going to like join the hunter squad for like where her community has reestablished themselves. She's managing to move on with her life. Satoko is still like keeping the faith alive, and it turns out that, hey, Gene, there's still hope for him, because that one scientist guy that he met on his journeys apparently managed to find his body and like freeze it, and he's like working on a cure, so there's hope that maybe he'll be saved someday. And that's really the ending that we kind of leave on, is like, yeah, things are bad in this world, but there's still cats in this world, guys.
Yeah, I mean,
there's still hope.
That is the optimism. There are a lot of times in my life where I really feel bleak about my point in the world, and thinking that, well, there's still so many cats I haven't pet, that really does like drive me forward. And I do love the optimism of like, the world's pretty great. It has cats as like a driving force to keep like optimism in a very pessimistic situation. I guess the one element to the ending we didn't discuss is that in that time skip, Yuki fucks. So he has he has little kittens now, and then Seiichi attempts to be like, all right, I've spent enough time here. I've got a good working arm now, like a prosthetic. Like, I'm gonna go out, venture back into the world, and I'm gonna go find Kaoru and let her know her cat's okay. But then weirdly, the joke at the end of the chapter is he like ran into zombies immediately. It's like, oh fuck that, and like goes back into the base. Like he was just like, yeah, that was actually these zombies have hands. I'm gonna maybe this isn't like the immediate thing. So it's like kind of weird. I actually thought with the way the ending was going that it was going to be like comically optimistic. I thought they were going to be like, we have revived Jin. He's alive. He's going to reunite with his wife. I'm gonna find Kaoru and let her know, and she's gonna go back to this little area, and she's gonna see the cat and all this. Like everyone's gonna see this cat and pet him at the end or something like that. No, it's not exactly that optimistic, but it is still comforting and nice, and good times were had by all.
Yeah, and the very last note we end on is Yuki sneaks out of the compound because he's a little rascal who can't be contained, and he immediately nearly gets set upon by zombies, and a random survivor who's coming by scoops him up and is like, "Why did I bother to save this cat?" and is running away from the zombies. So the cycle continues. Yuki
Was that
continues
not
to inspire
Saiichi?
homeless people. That wasn't Seiichi.
Oh, then never mind. I was wrong. I thought Saiichi left and then immediately saw the cat get attacked by a zombie. I was like, I'm out of here.
I'm pretty sure that was just a new guy.
Oh, okay. So, there we go.
So Yuki's adventures continue. That little rapscallion, yeah, I really do like the note that things end on after seeing everything. Seeing like, hey, there's some really bad stuff that's happened to people in this, and it's not like, oh, everything's gonna be okay, but everything could be okay as long as you just kind of keep on going. And sometimes you need a kitty cat to remind you of that, and that's just a nice note. And it feels like a nice solid theme to this. I don't think that the series is perfect, but it was definitely more than I was expecting it to be, especially based on the first couple of chapters of it, when it seemed like, oh, it's, there's some amusing little tidbits involving this cat.
Yeah, I think what I was expecting and what I got were different in a good way. I was expecting because I either expect one of two things. I expected there to be a story where like cats rule, but also zombie apocalypses are real shit, and this cat would never survive in one. Or I expected a world where it's like hilariously ignorant of the zombie apocalypse kind of thing or whatever. You don't really get it's more closer to the second than the other one, but it's still not exactly this isn't a comedy exactly. It's funny. There's a lot of like cute cat jokes and things like that. Like the cat gets catnip at one point. You're like, oh, what a great ass cat. This is great.
Yeah.
And to that degree, it's very, very cute and it's an enjoyable short story. But it exists in this weird space too, where I'd recommend it more for a cat fan than for anybody who's like looking for something spooky to like delve into in the holiday season or anything like that. It's not a particularly scary series. It's not going to do anything inventive in terms of like zombie media or anything like that. I bet there are still some people out there who have their full zombie escape plans in like a fucking wallet or whatever. So if you're like a big zom head and you're like, oh, what does this have that's new? It's the answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing.
There's a cat there this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a nice series, and I'm glad that I read it. I think that the rest of the manga we're talking about today have a distinct lack of cats in them. So,
which is rather unfortunate. If you're like, I listen to this podcast exclusively by a cat ratio, like the graph's gonna go up and up and up, and then it's gonna plummet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Very unfortunate.
Unless we get a random cat sighting, which can happen. But
it does. It does sometimes happen.
All right. We're going to talk about My Hero Academia now. It's chapter 404. We love you, All Might. Yay. Yay. All Might, who is, again, being hoisted into the air by All For One, who's going to kill that boy. And All Might, of course, in this moment is just thinking about how Night Eye had warned him this is going to happen. He was going to suffer an unspeakably gruesome death if he kept on going.
He is about to be Mortal Kombat fatality right now. Like this is like straight up like a Jax fatality. You're just like, I'm going to rip you in half in the air.
Okay. So this next sequence is weird. So we cut around to, I don't know why we get this like butterfly effect moment that happens here.
It is strange. I get what they're going for, but it is definitely one of the stranger like framing devices for a chapter.
So there's a sequence that happens where we start off with a guy in a field, and he says, "Maybe I'll bake a pie today." He breathes out. Cut to a guy in the dark watching the fight on TV. Cut to people in the office saying, "Forget about that far-off danger and focus on today's deadline." Cut to someone praying. Cut to a meteorologist observing weather patterns, and she says the atmospheric current is odd. And then we go to the site of the battle very briefly, and then back to her as someone says, "That on-air stunt of yours is already all over the internet." And the footage of her says it may ride east on the jet stream and affect the weather in North America. And people are watching the fight then and cheering on All Might. It's very weird that we cut around to this stuff in this way. And it took me about 3 read-throughs to understand what was happening.
It is meant to create this moment of just like, butterfly effect plus like, I mean, honestly, I can't think of another thing than like, we have to defeat the virus Mon or whatever his name was from the Digimon movie. So everyone's got to send emails to clog up the servers.
So the thing that actually happens now is Bakugo has revived.
But Nick, don't you mean Bakugro?
Bakugro?
Yeah, Bakugro.
Like as if he had gotten like bigger, or
oh, you're supposed to make a pun, right? And in turn, you flick the light on and off.
I feel like you might be missing it.
No,
you might not have. Okay.
I got the letter from the Spookmaster General. It said, make puns about characters' names and then flick the light. Now, there was an adjective in there. I think I forgot what it was. But I think I got it.
Okay. It was slightly smudged from when your nose bled all over the nose.
I got real sweaty. I don't normally receive correspondence from people other than rocks being thrown at my head.
It's a very interesting form of communication.
Sometimes people chisel messages into them, so that's nice. Usually it's like, you suck, or I hate your face. Sometimes it's just a rock, though, and those are the worst.
Aww. So what actually happened is that Bakugo, or Bakugro,
I was gonna say, but Nick!
He's revived thanks to Edgeshot turning into heart stitching. That's what happened. Deku and he make eye contact. Bakugo blasts off from the floating base towards Deku. He and Deku clasp hands, and they start to slingshot around. And in the exact moment that they complete their turn, Deku is meanwhile getting notes of, "Remember how gear shift works?" And it's like, yeah, I know. So Deku releases Bakugo after building up a gear shift to blast him even further and faster on his trajectory. And Bakugo keeps on blasting himself forward to go all the way after All Might and All for One. Shigaraki, who has been like 6 feet away while this is happening, it's like, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna, it's not. You're not gonna save him. I know, because the All Might within you used to show up all faint and fuzzy because he was still alive, and now he's taking solid form. So you know what that means.
I mean, he's dying.
He's dying. The dream is over. So I know that he and Shigaraki have had a lot of like connections and stuff mentally and seen what's going on in each other's heads. So I'm not too surprised by this information, but we didn't really, I don't think, have a moment of them seeing that, unless what happened in the last chapter was stuff Shigaraki could also just see in that moment. But whatever. He's mocking him because, like, it's already too late. But Bakugo continues blasting himself forward. And we are told in this moment, when people clench their fists or someone breathes a deep exhalation, it's a sort of energy. Energy from striving for a certain future energy from wishing. And we are told by the woman, the meteorologist from before, can the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil bring about a hurricane in Texas? Someone's prayers. So, I guess what we're being told simultaneously is that this is people's directed thoughts and hopes and dreams are all giving Bakugo the extra push, the extra speed he needs to reach All Might in time. But also because some random schmo on the other side of the world went, that a slight gust of wind also carried him a little bit faster. Now, these are two different types of things. I want people to understand this. The butterfly effect is about chaos and how random domino effects can happen from one side of the world to another. This, however, the rest of it is spirit bomb thoughts.
Yeah,
if we just direct our dreams and hopes and energy towards someone, then they could take it in vital moments. These are two different things, and it really annoys me.
No, Nick, so you see the farmer breathes in and then exhales. And then a kid at a computer somewhere hears the exhale and something happens. And then people in a boardroom, something happens. But then this meteorologist says that the atmospheric current is odd. And that makes a lot of people hope that All Might's okay. I also did not get this. I understand this is something that's been referenced before in this series, like the idea of like the butterfly effect and this weather report happened previously. I
right.
Probably should go back and like read it again, and maybe that'll help. But this did feel disjointed. Like I could have accepted either one of these individually, but as presented together as though they're one coherent idea, I was like, I don't quite get it.
That is the issue. I think that all the stuff with like everyone's thoughts and hopes and dreams, it's fine. Especially in that moment where Bakugo blasts all the way to All Might and All for One, and there's all the people in his wake, all the people in a big, huge split panel 2-page spread, and there's Tsukauchi, there's Gran Torino, there's Melissa Shield, there's Can't You See Kid and his friends, all these different people that we've seen like watching the action from across the world are still watching it, and they're witnessing this happen as it's been the fight has continued to be streamed, and so they see this happen in this moment. They've been hoping and hoping and hoping that All Might's going to be okay, and Bakugo snatches him away from All for One all at once. And we get a moment where Bakugo, we see, just little bits from his life that have led for him getting to this moment where he realized, like, he blames himself for All Might losing his power because All Might had to come save him when he was captured. And that's the last time he was able to truly be All Might.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a great big satisfying moment, a huge climax to this sequence where it's like, yay, Bakugo's alive and he gets to save All Might with all these people looking on. I don't know why we have to have this butterfly effect in here. I don't understand why they both have to happen at the exact same time.
So Ninja is saying that the wind was caused by the temperature change from all the Todoroki stuff.
I don't care.
And no, here's the thing. That's really cool. Like, I like this idea that this is like an impossible move that Deku and Bakugo are trying to do. They communicate entirely silently. Like they are both keyed in on this idea that there is only one way to save All Might, and it is a crazy long shot. And it doesn't feel like it should happen, but some not random, but like some event unrelated earlier has caused some change that will lead to this happening is like a cool idea. That sometimes miracles happen or something like that. And that's sometimes what heroism is. It's just a miracle happening. But like, just say that as opposed to being like, oh, but this farmer breathed somewhere else and that caused the like, I'm just like, that doesn't connect to anything. Like, just the idea that everybody here cares for All Might and a miracle happened to go his way is like a cool moment that I absolutely could have gotten behind. But this one just came off a little bit weird as a result.
And I want it to be clear that yes, all those things individually the people are saying are correct, but it is also correct that in this moment where we see the leaves blow past Deku's face, they are equated to each other and made one thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the chapter ends with Bakugo snagging All Might and catching him so hard that he blows off All for One's arms because he was hoisting him up in the air, which gave Bakugo an easy target. Yeah, All Might is not dead. He's able to gasp out Bakugo's name, and the ghostly image of All Might is restored in Deku's head too. So he's fine. And Bakugo's like, yeah, did a thing. This chapter was so close to being like the best thing ever, but I had to get on the one hang up I had with it.
So. Yeah, no, I agree. As I read this chapter, it's like I feel like I should like this, but I just didn't like the execution of it. I mean, that might be just an us thing. That's perfectly, sometimes we don't dig it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's we've got an Undead Unluck though.
Yeah, let's talk about Undead Unluck. This is number 180. Sorry about this. So last time, Latla and Rip put one foot in a big boot and they cut Sick open. So they've done. They've won. The boot unfuses. Oh wait, actually they didn't win. Fuko's like, hey, you're not done yet. His core needs to be destroyed. And you haven't destroyed it. She immediately gets into action as sort of like the leader and is like, all right, close quarters, you take this side. Range attackers, you got to take this side. We cannot let this guy maneuver around right now. Rip's like, oh, I have to help. And Latla's like, no, I will help. Fuko needs you over there right now. So he's like, all right, fine. Goes over there. He's like, all right, Fuko, I'm going to walk you through this surgery. How far along? And she's going at it. And she's doing this surgery while she is also trying to coordinate things. And he's like, holy crap, she's actually really good at this. He's like, how are you so good? It took me 10 years to get to this level. And Fuko's like, yeah, I guess everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. It took me 100 years to do this.
Yeah.
Very cool line. Rip's like, wait, how fucking old are you? But she's like, hey, I'm almost done. We're nearing the home stretch. I will save her. But this is tough. And she's looking at this action going on. And she's like, Andy, I know you normally would have wanted to take on this role. And ever since the loop, I just haven't found you. I couldn't find any hint of you or anything like that. So in your absence, I'm going to take on everything, I'll take on all of this. After all, we are. And then there's a big explosion. She's like, damn, this hospital is being destroyed right now. This building will not keep going if this assault keeps up. And she notes to Gina, she's like, you gotta keep the Unchanged barrier up stronger. Rubble's starting to break through. And Sick takes this moment to shoot out one of his little tendrils, and it rips through the barrier and cuts Fuko, but specifically cuts the cap holding her hair back. Mm-hmm. And she sees her hair come down, and she's like, oh no, my hair touched him. Oh fuck. And she immediately has a look of real panic because she's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I know that my hair can activate my ability, but I don't know what this ultimately means. She's like, I can't predict this outcome. And then they look up and a meteorite is coming down. And we see all the characters just looking up. Slackjaw Nico's just like, holy shit, she wasn't kidding when she said her power can summon a meteorite. Oh no. Mm-hmm. Sick is just laughing about all this. He's just being blown up. He's just being attacked over and over again. But he's still just kind of laughing. He's like, you're the Unluck vessel, aren't you? I see why that death-wishing fool has his eye on you. But it doesn't matter. He can't die in the end. The second he became the negator of death, his luck ran out. And Fuko starts to panic. She's like, what do I do? This hospital is going to be wiped off the map. We can't get anybody out of this territory. Running is just not an option. So she starts trying to process everything. She's like, could we use Unchanged? She's like, no, Gina's too tired. The barrier probably won't hold. Could we use Chikara? we could. Maybe that would stop the meteor, but we have no way to get rid of it, and Sick will be interfering with us the entire time. What about Unbreakable? We don't have enough time. We could use Latla's Untrust, but that would just divert it somewhere else, and there would still be a disaster. So she immediately is freaking. She's like, everybody get to the wall. Billy, you had to create an Unchange barrier. Shin, you gotta strengthen it as much as you possibly can. Everything looks like it's really, really bad. But then a second object from space is hurtling towards Earth, and it's a hand. And the hand grabs on to Sick's head, and it slams it into the ground. And we see the hand start to become an arm, and we see the dead end tattoo on the shoulder. And Andy has shown up. He immediately apologizes. He says, this body's a clone. It's not going to last more than a minute. But give me the order, boss. He's like reformed at this point. We see like the
and naked, the way that Andy should be.
And this is a very powerful moment because Fuko pauses for a moment. She's like, Andy, this is the first time she's seen him in a very long time, thousands of years, I believe. But she immediately pushes it down and starts like giving directions because she knows she doesn't have time to like get emotional here. So she's like, I'm going to continue to operate. You have to handle Sick. You need to destroy his core. It's going to be either on the left or right side. And then we're going to find a way to use another stroke of unluck to intercept the meteorite. And Andy just says, 1 minute, more than enough to handle this. So that's where we end the chapter. Andy is here very briefly. Some say this is probably being done as a way to connect to the anime if you were just starting to watch that, because the anime is starting. They're like,
yeah,
Andy's not shown up in the manga for a good year and some change, so a nice chance. But I do like it. I do think there is a mistake because we keep seeing Sick with both arms, so I think that's just an error because Sick should only have one.
Because it was cut off, and it was cut off by unrepair, so it's not like you could just regenerate it.
There may be some other technique to explain it, but yeah, I like this chapter a lot. It was really cool to see Andy again. I think it's really cool that he just lands and immediately is like, we gotta, like, I'm only here for a moment, so give me the orders, and I think that's really, really cool.
Yep. I don't really know what the hell is going to happen now. I wasn't expecting Andy to show up in this particular moment, but I can't imagine that Sick's going to be around for much longer.
No, it would be wild if Sick took him out. If like Sick went toe to toe with Andy, like, oh no, it's like, nah, this clown's out of here next turnabout.
Yeah, and it was nice to see, the continued reminder of like, look, Fuko's really strong. She's got a lot of really good plans, and she knows, everyone better than they even know themselves due to all of her experiences. But even she, can fall prey to like bad situations and has those panicky moments. And it's nice to have that, those human touches for her, even though she's, still the general of everyone, everything. Like she doesn't always have it together. And in her darkest moment, hey, Andy's there to back her up.
Yep.
And it was nice in that regard. But I am glad to know that Andy is not going to just like be around now, because it will definitely feel like, well, why is
this
just
is a little anticlimactic? Yeah, the idea is like, hey, this is just a clone. It's only going to be here for a minute or whatever. Maybe next chapter, who knows?
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Blue Box. Blue Box, chapter 122, show off your skills. Taiki and Shinatsu are at morning practice.
But Nick, don't you mean
where's the Gakura?
Shinatsu?
So like she's
Shinatsu, Nick.
So it's like so.
Oh, I think I broke it. No, it's okay.
So because the last part of her name is the beginning of the word soup. Is that what you're saying?
What?
Oh,
what are you talking about?
Nothing. Good.
Was that a good one?
Yeah, great.
I'm gonna put
Gakuro.
another
Yeah.
tally on the board. What do you do when you've had more than one tally in your life?
Oh, you don't know how tally marks work, do you?
I've never used them before. I've never put anything in my win column.
So, Taiki and Chinatsu are hanging out in the gym, doing work in their own corners. Akari comes in, and so she greets the two of them. Taiki's like, "Oh yeah, good job coming in early." And she's like, "Ah!" Gets freaked out, and she says, "Oh, I wasn't expecting you to talk to me. I'm used to getting up early because my whole family goes for a run together first thing in the morning." So yeah, Hyodo, not just Hyodo, his entire family gets up at the crack of dawn to go on jogs together.
That's wild.
Everybody. And so she says, "Yeah, but I want to get good at badminton now, so I bailed early to come here instead." It's like, well, so she's already been working out essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was very intriguing, because like this is their sacred time. Like this was like what got them to know each other. Is like we're the only two people here in the morning, and it's like nope, this new kid's actually going to be here about the same time. Yeah. It's like fuck.
So she's like, "Yeah, well, if I want to be able to return my brother's smashes, then I've got to train." So Taiki compliments her, like, "Oh yeah, it's nice to have that determination." And Shinatsu's watching the two of them talk to each other, as soon as Taiki notices it, he's like, "There's nothing going on.
Nothing. It's cool. It's fine."
Yeah. Akari starts to ask him a favor, but before she can, some more people come in, and she's immediately like, "Ah, nothing, goodbye!" Gets scared and runs away. And she's like, "Oh, if I were to ask him how to teach me to return smashes, I'd just be bothering him." Oh, it's like, oh, she doesn't want to be a bother, and that's sad.
Just like me.
Yeah, that's how you get to know people, is that you learn that you're not always just a bother to them.
Not me. I'm always an inconvenience.
Don't you have like 3 girlfriends?
No. Huh? Do I?
Isn't that what's going on?
No. When the manga ends, they just point and laugh at me.
Oh. It's not very good. That's not good information to have from behind the scenes of this.
I'm gonna give you some fun facts about New Exorcist. I don't have a track.
Even you call it that.
That's the name, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what I got tattooed on my back. Well, they tattooed it on my back.
They branded you.
I thought we were going to do like the Lord of the Rings Fellowship 9 tattoo, but actually they just tattooed New Exorcist on my back. Maybe as a warning, now that I think about it. Like a curse.
Oh, boy. But it feels like the first real sign that Akari is in fact drawn to Taiki in some way is that she's thinking like, "Oh yeah, I want to return Hyodo smashes. Also, I want to return Taiki Senpai smashes." And it's like, all right, looks up to him in some form at the very least.
There's something.
Yeah. Later on, when the whole badminton club is there, Nishi announces that there's going to be a round robin tournament, and they say the results will be used to determine who's going to go to the qualifiers for nationals. Haruyu, of course, immediately does very well. He's beating everyone that he goes up against. And people are just kind of like looking on from the sidelines. They're like, "Oh yeah, the first years are definitely no match for the second and third years. But if anyone were to get in, it'd be him." And of course, they're talking about Haruto, who is also doing really well. He's winning his matches and progressing and stuff. And he happens to go up to the board where they're tracking their wins at the same time that Haruyu is there. And someone kind of immediately like runs off after knowing stuff on the board. Doesn't want to interact with him at all, and so Haruyu notes like, "Man, everyone's really scared of you. You okay with that?" He's like, "Yeah, it's fine. I kind of get a kick out of seeing them cower. I take it as a compliment." And so Haruyu asks him like, "Hey, you went to Sajikawa Junior High, so why'd you decide to take the test to come to Eime High instead?" And he paused for a second, and Haruto just looks at Haruyu and says, "To win at nationals. That's what I told you, right?" then he just kind of like goes over to Taiki, Haruto does, and he's like, "Hey, dude, was that Jello in the kitchenette for anybody?" And Taiki's like, "It was the teacher's." Oh, oops, I ate it.
Yeah, this dude is just the fucking worst.
Just ate someone's Jello. It's like you don't know who it was. It's not for you. There's only one Jello.
He just walked in. He was just like, I'm just gonna have this though.
It's like his
I didn't confuse it for my Jello or something similar. I just saw it and ate it, and I was like, was that a teacher's?
It's like the teacher is Ross from Friends.
Yeah. My Jello
So,
with the moist maker.
Ross sounds a lot like Gakuro.
My sandwich.
Oh, I take it back. Haruto leaves. Haru's been watching.
I actually look up to Ross. He's my hero. Of all the friends, he's the one I want to exemplify the most.
No.
The idea that Gakuro looks up to Ross as an inspiration would actually say a lot about him.
The one person who says Ross is his inspirational figure from Friends.
I want to be more like that guy.
It's like if you say you want Phoebe to be is your aspirational figure. It's like she's kind of a shit person. Oh god. Anyway, so Haruto just goes off after talking about stealing that teacher's Jello, I guess. And Haru's been observing this, and he's like, "Why is he talking to you so casually?" And Taiki's like, "Yeah, apparently he thinks that I'm a first year." Haru, of course, thinks this is fucking hilarious.
Like, what?
Like the most emotion he has ever expressed. It just comes out in this moment, has a laughing fit.
He's so excited by this news.
Yeah. But they talk a bit about Haruto and say, like, you know, among the first years, he's obviously like the odd one out. So, you know, people who speak their mind tend to be. But he's good at badminton, so nobody can complain. Haru says, "I do like him. You can tell from talking to him how much he likes badminton. Anyway, time to show off your skills, Inamata Senpai." Just making fun of him some more and stuff. But he goes on to say, like, hey, I don't care if he doesn't recognize you as an upperclassman. You better not lose to him, though. Because, of course, they've got their own little Senpai-Kohai rivalry going on right now. Haruto is watching some other people play badminton. Mentally, he's just like, why are these guys playing like that? They're making these easy mistakes. And he thinks back to how his older brother would talk to him the exact same way. Like, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? And how much it would piss him off, of course. And he's lost in thought for a second until Taiki comes up and gets his attention. Says, hey, let's have a match. So everyone starts to kind of like take notice of this because, like, oh, Taiki, who of course has been doing really well. And there's Haruto, who's, you know, the rising star. But they're still like, oh, who you think's gonna win and stuff. And they start playing with each other, and they start observing, like, oh, you know, Haruto's using a feint, so it's a good move to use against Taiki, so that they can, you know, change up the tempo of play. He's like probably the type of player that specifically Taiki would not do well against, but Taiki does immediately manage to catch Haruto off guard by dropping the shuttlecock in a different position instead, and they start to have this intense volley at the net up until Haruto manages to get a good shot that gets by Taiki, and they're like, "Oh shit, he's got it past him," and Taiki whips around and manages to save it, lob it back over the net, and even when Haruto looks like he feels like, oh, I'm going to finish it off, he still keeps on going for it. Like, he just doesn't give up on volleys like that.
Yeah.
So it starts drawing a lot of attention, even from people outside of the club. Other people in the gymnasium are watching stuff. And so people who are hanging out with Akari are like, oh, yeah, that's Yusa. He looks good. oh, and the guy he's going up against is Akari's crush. And Akari's like, crush? What crush? No, I just like the way that he plays. Chinatsu is literally right next to the girls as they're talking.
I love it. She has like this thing first, like, what? But then it's very, very cute because she's actually like, oh, he has little fangirls now. But he's mine. So
mine.
I got him. Like, she doesn't say those words, but it's definitely an attitude. Like, it's actually kind of cute that he has, like, people crushing after him because I do too. I just am dating him.
Yeah. Shinatsu's very secure in their relationship, it seems, because, you know, immediately she just looks past him, sees her boy trying his hardest, and she's like, yeah, that's Taiki. Yeah. So a nice chapter, again, really getting into the sports part of this series with this, you focus on this badminton match that's going on between Taiki and Haruto, and it does feel like stuff's at stake here. Like, hey, you better not fucking lose, Taiki. You don't lose.
Yeah, there's definitely some really, really cool stuff going on. Let's force ourselves, Nick, to talk about Boruto.
Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, Chapter 3, Uzuhiko. Our cover page features Himawari, who's not in this chapter at all, I don't think.
Oh, we hadn't gotten a color page with her because it was Boruto at the start, then Sarada, and then like it makes sense. They're gonna get different characters. What I think is very humorous is like it feels like her pants have gotten like more comically large. Like she's wearing Jinko jeans now or something. Like I'm like, why are these so baggy? I don't understand. This like feels a different kind of impractical for a ninja.
Yeah. Every teenage girl in Boruto is going to wear the most impractical clothing to be a ninja in, it feels like.
It feels like she was like, I miss my dad, so I'm going to put on one of his pairs of pants and just wear that. Like, they're so big.
Is that what every girl is going to do? Is like, I miss the important man in my life, so I'm going to wear his clothes.
I'm going to wear a piece of his clothing. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it would... Nick, there's only so many There's only so many quote unquote important female characters in this series, and 2 of them are doing it. So if we just find out Ada is like puts on like a stupid thing that what's his name?
Strap on her face.
Yeah, she has a big strap going across her head, and you're like, yeah, that's what they're all doing.
So last time Boruto said, after telling Code constantly, was like, you better give up. He's like, all right, I'm going to use my new technique, Rasengan Uzuhiko. And so he's using it, and there's all this energy whirling around him now. But there's no Rasengan formed in his hand. So Code's like, is he using his vanishing Rasengan thing? Nah, that's not it. Also, why is he approaching me like this? So, you know, he slashes his claws, makes a bunch of claw marks in the ground, teleports behind Boruto using one of them, and goes like, I'm going to get you. And Boruto just turns around, goes to use the palm strike, and goes like, ha! I caught your hand! This is the ultimate way of dealing with this. Now I've got a free hand. And Boruto just partially unsheathed the sword, because he's Sasuke now. Blocks the claw from there. And Code's like, ha! You can't hit me with it! And Boruto's like, I told you, killing you is easy. In fact, I'm already halfway there. And even the act of Code catching his hand has transferred the jutsu onto him. The energy is now swirling around him, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything. So Code's like, all right, okay, so... And Boruto says,
interesting.
I'm warning you. You better give up. Code's like, no. Goes for him and immediately just misses Boruto. Flows past him. And he's like, stop moving around. Misses him again, lunging towards him. He's like, what's going on? He's not simply dodging. It's not just genjutsu or doppelgangers. This is... And Boruto punches him really, really hard in the gut and declares Rasengan Uzuhiko. And the energy goes whirling into him again, but like more. And he just blows him off his feet. He lands on his feet. And that's it.
He's done.
Ada's watching. Ada's watching everything, of course, with her security camera footage jutsu thing. And she's like, that seems really basic. How's it different from a regular Rasengan? I mean, if anything, it seems less powerful than a normal Rasengan because it didn't blast them apart. It just kind of went, so you go over there. So, expert combat analyst Damon.
Yeah, Damon, who, as we know, is a combat specialist. Now, it was established he's like the fighter of the two, but I'm just like, how many fights has this kid been in?
It doesn't seem like very many. So he goes, so Boruto's the one making the ground tremble. Or rather, it's the entire Earth. This attack makes use of planetary spin. Now, as absurd as that sentence is, he is correct. My question is, how does he know that? And 1A, how does he know that? And Ada, who can see everything, not know that?
It's like a sense of like, part of me is like annoyed because it's like, oh, the boy of the group has to be like the fighting expert who can give the knowledge, and then part of me is just like, okay, who gives a shit? I like kind of passed by. I was like, sure, whatever. I don't know. You have two characters there. I guess both of them should talk.
So, Code is. Yes, go ahead.
I'm just trying to think. I'm like, how, like, what does Damon also have the eyes that see everything?
No.
So like, I like he's just feeling the ground rumble, and he's like, a bitch hit him with spin.
Yeah.
he fucking hit him with infinite spin. He used Tuska level 4, whatever on him, or whatever Johnny's stand was for part 7. This is straight up an ability for part 7, by the way, of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
So, Code is very clearly winded by this, and he's like, "Oh, I nearly dropped my ass caught because of that." And Boruto
I would have looked foolish.
Boruto says, "I'm surprised. I didn't expect you to still be standing." And when Code looks at Boruto, everything is spinning. In fact, it's not even just that everything is spinning, because that would require like a nifty-looking visual effect. There's just speed lines, but in a whirly pattern this time to represent a whirlwind.
There's a bunch of swirl around him. It's like he can't see anything.
Yeah. It's like, what's with all the spinning? And he just topples over and falls on his side. And he's like, what did you do to me? And Boruto says, think of it as a biting counterattack from this planet that you were trying to destroy. All right.
Destroyed him. Nick, roasted. He's been fucking toasted. God, this kid's dead in more ways than one. Socially, certainly.
Captain Planet is Boruto. So he says, this is a Rasengan that incorporates a planet's chakra, its rotation. The power that is rushing through your body right now will never dissipate, like how a planet will never stop spinning. First of all, planets do stop spinning. That is a thing that can happen. So, bad science Boruto appears.
Whoa, Nick, you're calling bad science and all this?
Yes. Obviously, compared to a human lifespan, it feels like it'll never end. But anyway, he says, yeah, the damage to you will continue semi-permanently. Semi, because your life will run out before the planet stops spinning.
He thought he ate there. He really thought he had something. He was like, semi-permanently, because you'll die before the planet stops spinning. Did you ever see like the image of when the actress was announced for Bad Cinderella, and she's like, I'm gonna be your Cinderella. I'm not gonna be your Cinderella. I'm your bad Cinderella. And she turns around and like starts spray painting bad. This is a very specific reference most people won't get.
You think?
I forgot that not everybody is terminally on TikTok like I am. Regardless, the point is that this was definitely a moment that I feel like Boruto was supposed to come off cool, and I'm just like, I mean, I guess. Yeah, technically.
Of course he's supposed to come off as cool. Look at him. He's got a scar over his eye. He carries a sword. He's got that cloak. And he's making serious faces. So yes, he's supposed to come off as if he's cool. Instead, I want everyone to just imagine all the teenage cosplayers who will try and say this line because they think it's cool. And I want you to go,
not cool like us.
Very awkward and cool when that happens. And I want you to say, like, yes, but that's the original form it took. Look, I'm not even going to get into if you transfer a planet's rotational ability to a single person's body, they will just die. Like, so anyway, Boruto says, like, look, I'll rescind the ability if you just tell me where the fucking Ten Tails is. Take me there, and you might live. But no, instead, Kawaki shows up, and Kawaki and Boruto angry smolder at each other.
Yeah.
They're just... Remember when Boruto had a personality before he got older?
He doesn't anymore. He's just cool now.
Kawaki.
Kawaki, you fool. You let him escape.
And then Himawari's there, and he actually shows a brief semblance of emotion because, like, oh, Hima's here. And also she's there with, like, Shikadai's group. And they're like, what are you doing in Konoha? And Boruto's like, I'm trying to make a deal. Am I not interfering? And Code's like, my claw marks are over here. And Kawaki's like, nope, shrinks them with his jutsu and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I don't know what happened here, but I think we've cut off Code from his escape, so I could probably just kill him now. And Shikamaru, who's in contact with him, is like, yeah, kill that boy. And Boruto's like, no, don't do it. Don't provoke him. And Kawaki's like, who are you to order me around? If you think that I'm doing the same voice for these two, it's because I am. That's why. That's all. That's the only reason. If you showed yourself here, you must be prepared to die, Boruto. All right. So,
Yep.
Code summons a Frieza clone.
Come on, Nick. Grime Claws. We know their name.
Claw Grime.
Claw Grime, yeah.
Kawaki gores it through the stomach, but Code is like, oh, the strap's on its back, and he teleports through the strap. And Kawaki's like, no, he got away.
It's very funny to me because it's like, isn't he supposed to be like intensely dizzy and like that's a pretty precise jump he had to make because like he had to not be in the spike, you know?
Look, I can't attack Boruto, who is 5.5 feet tall. But I can aim for this one section of flesh that is 4 square inches. Yeah. So Ko gets away through one of the claw grimes, and Shikamaru is like, kill the other claw grimes. And the Kawaki's like, I got business with this one. He looks at Boruto. Meanwhile,
I like that there's a little sound effect that says, ooh.
Yeah, that's the sound the audience is making while watching this.
Ooh. Yeah. Every new line. Ooh.
Ooh. The guy who was turned into a tree, I don't know his name, but he's a tree now. They're looking at it, and Sarai's investigating it, and she's like, well, Ten Tails...
Would it be ironic if his name was like Alfred Mahogany or something like that? Like, he's just like, don't make fun of me because I turned into a tree now.
Not even like anything like subtle, like
branch oak.
Yeah, it's like oak tree McMahogany or something like that. So Sarada's investigating it, and she opines, well, Ten Tails becomes a divine tree when devouring an Otsutsuki, so maybe devouring beings is instinctual for them. And so the guy's like, oh, so you mean this is a defective divine tree because it devoured the wrong thing? And Sarai's like, I mean, I'm not sure, but he's not dead. It's a good thing that Tree Face McMahogany is still alive. It's a good thing. I'm glad. Kawaki looks at Boruto and says, it's been 3 years. What's with your outfit? You an Uchiha adoptee now? And Boruto says, your smack talk sure hasn't changed. Yeah, but yours has. It got way lamer. And they start to slowly walk towards each other. Slowly. We can't have anything else happen in this chapter, so they slowly turn towards each other while they say, butt out, Put out, Kwaki. You're in my way. You're the only one in anyone's way, Boruto. Oh, Uno reversed that, son of a bitch. Yeah, you got him, Kwaki. God, this is interminable. Boruto's got a frog in his collar. The frog says, "Infiltration accomplished, Boruto. Code is returned to base." And they snuck a frog in Code's clothes to spy when he went back to the Ten Tails.
I really expected this frog to be like more covert or whatever. It's like just on his thigh. It's like, hey, made it. And I'm like, I feel like the cool ninjas would figure this one out really easily.
Just come on.
This is kind of a big frog. I'm not gonna lie. You should. I'm not even a ninja. I would definitely notice a frog of that size on my hip.
So they've confirmed that the Ten Tails is there. Cool. Boruto knows where the Ten Tails is.
Oh, maybe. We also find out poor Bug is in a tree. Poor Bug.
Oh no.
Poor Bug.
Oh no. Oh no. I mean, admittedly, I do care about him more than Tree Face McMahogany.
Yeah. So. Old Tree Face. Nick, not a good chapter, but most of it was action, so that's good. It was pretty quick, and that I appreciate.
It went by faster than it could have.
Yeah.
Eden Zero!
Nick, let's talk real quick about Eden Zero. This is chapter 261, Life/Death. So it's poetry, some would say. It rhymes. So last time, Moskoy turned into Cosmo, the sexy bondage butler. And Clown's dead here. And I really did sit there and think, like, maybe Clown was human and I just forgot. He is a robot, so I don't really know why the robot killing gas didn't work on him, too. I guess he took an antidote to the robot killing gas.
Yeah, it was sitting in his digestive system, which robots have.
I get it. We get some more bondage jokes. So if you're a huge fan of those, you get like 2 straight pages of it. They do start to...
By bondage jokes, you mean just bondage acts. I mean...
Yes. I'm sorry. If you thought there was like a set-up punchline, I guess there's not. But Sister gets put into different bondage positions, so if that's what you're interested in, you get a couple pages of that. Happy does ask a question that I think we're all wondering, which is like, why does Moscow turn into you? Right. And Cosmo responds... it's actually just a transformative function because Ivory kept like punishing Bosco in really humiliating ways and eventually created this switch that makes everything opposite. It's truly like a, I don't know. It does.
Because
why does he become a space butler? I guess a butler is the opposite of what Moscow is.
Right. Why do I exist as the opposite personality of Moscow? Because I exist as the opposite personality of Moscow. That's basically just it. There is admittedly one line in this that actually didn't legitimately make me laugh, which is he proceeds that explanation to Happy of like, oh, you know, it's transformation design by saying, oh, it's for a very deep and significant reason. It's just a transformation function. Just immediately contradicts himself that it's for a deep and significant reason. It's like, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. We get some spanking jokes, so if you were looking forward to that, you can. I relate very much to Happy, who's just kind of like awkwardly watching this, being like, should I go? And then Clown's like, I'm Clown! And starts self-destruct. So they're like, oh no, this is really bad. But then Pino activates her EMP, so Clown doesn't explode. And also, is like defeated, I guess. Like smoke comes out of his mouth, so I think that's what happens when an EMP goes off. You defeat Clowns.
Yeah, you go cough, hack, smoke and kill. Yeah.
In the process of doing that, that also negates Cosmo and Moskoy's transformation. So we get Moscow back again, and Witch is like, her sister's like, I'm gonna punish you now, but we don't get any time for that because the Eden Zero is gonna self-destruct in 8 minutes. We get a brief interaction between Killer and Hermit where Hermit's like, I have to fix this, and he's like, you can't, no one can overcome my programs. And Weiss is like, why don't you come and fight us? And he's like, sorry, I'm the type who fights with his head, unlike you. And I'm like, he's like a technological genius. I don't understand what that... Yeah, whatever.
Just people... It's just people saying things. That's all it is.
Uh-huh.
There's nothing actually meaningful behind it.
And then Hermit goes, the life of Edens won't not let anyone die. And I always forget that's what her title is supposed to be because it makes very little sense. We cut over to Witch, who is doing something. I truly don't know what she's casting something. And Wizard says, a haze element. And I don't know what that means. It's something. She casts a spell and he blocks it. And then he overdrives. And he's like, Shiki boarded that ship. What a fool. Now he'll never return. And this character's name, I forgot. Lawless Lightning or some shit like that. I'm just going to call him Double L. Double L's like, my robots, I'm bringing them back. Shiki's like, what? How could you possibly do this? And he throws a bunch of like metal shards at one of the robots and it gets smashed, but then it gets back up. And Double L's like, you will serve me until there's nothing left of you but a single screw. And Shiki's like, no, how can you do this way to the robots? Like, what do you... And then Double L takes this opportunity to sneak up and stab Shiki through the chest. And he's like, oh, you little thing like that shake you, huh? And then, of course, Nick, it's time for our obligatory 20,000 years ago page. This time it's Witch saying, should we name the baby Shiki? And Wizard's like, Shiki? And she says, yes, I think there's a powerful life force in the name Shiki, which is ironic because he's dying 20,000 years from now.
Yeah, it's also weird because I'm pretty sure that she means death, so... Okay.
No, Nick, it makes a ton of sense. Stop thinking about it.
So this is bad. Moving on.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to say. We've talked about how these one-page things are dumb. We've talked about how the fake outs in Eden Zero are dumb. As I said, if you want to see some bondage and spanking jokes, you get a little bit of that there. If you were hoping for like explanations about the Cosmo, you're not getting that. There's no progression in anything else. Wizard can overdrive. Who gives a shit?
Pretty much. Fuck it. So, yeah, we've got to talk about several more series. Let's get into Cipher Academy, Chapter 45. Become the fight, not the muzzle. Whatever that means. Kubinashi and Yugata are having a battle with each other, and on the line is the loser will be exiled from Cipher Academy. So Kubinashi has proposed the game Endless Craps, and she says that this was devised by Class E's Ryu Hanagoromo, who we do catch up on, just like as she's making her way through stuff on a different floor. And she says, this is a game where participants link words. One takes the last syllable of the previous word, uses it to create a new word, and so on. In other words, it's Shiri Tori, the popular Japanese game where you take the last character of one word to begin the next one. But with the added twist that they roll dice to determine how many syllables your word has to be. You get points for it depending on how many syllables it is. And if you can't think of a word, then that's a bad thing. So that's a combination of dice with the word game. So she says you don't lose if you use a word that ends with N, which is a big no-no because, of course, you can't begin things with the syllable N in Japanese. It's a very weird thing. Like, almost everything's a vowel sound in Japanese except N, which is not. But, she gives an example and is like, all right, you with me? And you got just like, yep, okay. And she says, also, you get 3 different types of dice. And this is the most Dungeons and Dragons that we've gotten in a while. Because it's like, holy shit, a D6, a D12, and a D20? what the fuck?
It's wild. It's like you get more points the higher you roll, but you'd get really fucked if you rolled really high on those dice, particularly the D12 or the D20.
So of course our observation team are looking on well this with some interest, especially because these two are having a battle that has completely nothing to do with the tower progression that they're getting into. And Kubinashi says, "We'll keep going until someone else reaches this floor. I certainly wouldn't want to play while having to keep an eye on the clock after all." Uh, and Yugata says, "Yeah, those are difficult rules. It'll be difficult to beat you without hurting you under these rules. I mean, it's like, fuck it, I fucking love Yugata. So she's so extra and badass." So we get our big square off thing with the two of them doing fucking JoJo poses, getting ready to go. Cut around a bit more to like where Iroha is. They're playing a DDR puzzle. Don't know how that works, but
I mean, there was like a surgery puzzle, so
yeah.
I'm not gonna worry about it.
So they start getting into the game, and Kubinashi immediately starts using words that are basically needling into
She's
Yugata's
mean.
past.
You're like, oh, come on.
So, for example, she used a word that is undutiful towards one's parents and stuff, and all of her things are like that, basically accusing Yugata of betraying her family, not living up to their expectations, and relying on Toshusai instead. But the real big complication that they come across is, so Yugata is rolling the d20s. They're like, oh, she's falling for the bait. And Nohime says, no, she's not. She's acknowledging that she won't be able to win if she rolls the d6 or the d12 because she has a dire lack of luck. If she had participated in leaky poker, she probably would have had no hand for the entire game. That's the kind of luck she's got. Iroha is being told about this at the same time for some reason. I don't know why. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense though. Dice and cards and stuff is just like all probability and everything. He's told like, no. Have you never noticed any trends in your code battles with Yugata? In my exhibition match with her, I wasn't able to pull that genius level of bad luck out too well. As long as she doesn't have some sort of code battle that would seriously exile her from Cipher Academy, I'm sure she'd never suffer too much from being so unlucky. But Yugata has commented on this to pass even straight to Iroha, saying like, it must be nice to be lucky because she's just got bad luck in general. Mm-hmm. And things progress that way. Every time that Kubinashi gets word, she does something that needles Yugata further, and she's just, rolling like d6 each time. Yugata is rolling the d20 every time and is always getting like 1, 2, 3.
It's embarrassing because like they point out that like she never rolls higher than a 5 when she's just rolling that, and it's like, damn, I've known players with that level of bad luck where you're just like, I don't know what this is. You have cosmically bad luck.
It's incredible. I've seen runs of that like that before, but they're like, holy shit, what the fuck happened? But that's probably in order for her to roll less than a 5 in the 15 rolls that she gets. That's so many.
And 5 is like the high point. Usually it's like 2 or 1, like she's just, I would not want to play D&D with her. Her character would die, like it just implode immediately.
Yeah, we're talking in the realm of like freaking trillions to 1 odds at a certain point. But anyway, the observation crew are like, it's actually amazing in an incredibly different way, which is that she's rolled the d20 15 times and never got higher than 5. And meanwhile, Kubinashi can just play it safe because she's never going to get caught. And so they're like, oh shit, man, maybe Yugata's really in a bad spot. And eventually, Kubinashi says, like, oh, are you suspecting that I tamper with the dice? We're in a virtual reality realm here, so that, that's not what the case. I can understand why you'd want to forget about Iroha Zakaku enticing you, though. And Yugata says, all right, that one hurt. You're the one person I thought would understand how grateful I am to Iroha Zakaku for that. and she picks up all 3 dice at once to roll them together. And so they're like, oh yeah, I mean, like, they never said that you could only roll a single die, right? So I guess that falls within the realm of credibility. But Nohime says, like, nah, actually, you've got it wrong. It's in places like this that Tayutan's plans backfire. That's the true nature of Tayuta luck. And she has rolled a 20 on the d20 and a 9 on the 12. Her roll in total is 30. She has to come up with a 30 plus syllable line. And so, like, shit, what's she going to do? And Kubinashi's like, hey, looks like that's game. You know, maybe depending on the circumstances, we don't have to actually exile you. And Yugata says, you just said reprogramu. So I'm going to take the mu and make it into Murasame no Suyu mo mada hinumaki no hani kirita chinaboro aki no yugure, which is a poem, which is basically translates to the rain shower has passed, but the dew has yet to dry, while white mist rises up around the pine leaves on this autumn evening. And this is seemingly in reference for her to the time that she was, you know, living by herself in the rain, and Toshisa came and offered her a place by her side. And so everyone's like, oh shit, what the hell? she did it. How the hell did she do that? But it's not just that. As Kubinashi goes on saying, like, hey, you know, even if we excuse the fact that you rolled multiple dice, you should have gotten some information ahead of time before you decided to use an entire poem in a one-word naming game. But at that moment, Invalides Yunaki Guisu has arrived on their floor. And she says, yeah, she actually was getting confirmation the entire time that you guys were playing. Or did you not notice that all the syllables that are from that poem are the only ones that she used in all of her previous answers? Not only was she playing the endless craps, but she was combining it with her game with Iroha, verbal slip cut by omission.
So wild. I love how fucking extra these characters are.
So essentially, Invalidia says, I would interpret that code like this. I'm going to recite this poem later. She called her shot. And so, yeah, Kubinashi's got no response to that and is like, all right, well, I guess the one whose strategy backfired was me. And she just kind of like quietly applauds it. And she says, you know, I just made the rule. She says, Yugata says, I just made the rules kinder so that I wouldn't hurt you. Because with her monster score that she got from that, she tied it with Kubinashi. So now neither of them gets expelled. It's a ridiculous triple reveal that happens.
It's very funny because it's what you expected. When I was like, all right, they're like, oh, the loser not only gets expelled from the game, they get expelled from the school. It's like, well, you're not going to do that. Like, you're not going to essentially kill off a character. So the idea was like, they'll probably tie the game or something like that. Mm-hmm. But the idea that's like, oh, she uses her weird luck to do this elaborately long poem, and also she's been following an entirely different set of rules because it's the only way it's the handicap she feels she needs to put on herself to make this a fair game, otherwise she'd destroy her, and she did it to make this tie. It's like, okay, this is straight up Yu-Gi-Oh! Of just like, I had the perfect monster to this situation. I attacked the moon and it destroyed your tide, and now I can go at all your monsters. She's like, sure, man, I guess that's just a card in your deck.
Yeah. It's like, this character seems broken. I don't care.
Yeah. She looks cool. I don't know what to tell you. I've long since reached the point where I was like, oh, I wonder if any of our main characters will take like debilitating losses, and like we'll see them have to like, nah, they're just gonna be fucking cool and they're gonna look cool. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, what a fun little ride that is. Kagurabachi, though, we gotta move on. Chapter 6, peace. So Chihiro, while he's got Char in his car, is being beset upon.
Oh, that rhymed.
Yeah, it did. Good catch. So, he is cornered in his car by a sorcerer who's got like a bunch of like clones of himself everywhere surrounding the vehicle, and they all start charging in towards him. And not only that, but they like dissolve into mush and float and swarm in through the windows and overwhelm Chihiro until he just bursts out. He just does. Lands on a ledge nearby in a superhero pose and stuff. And so he explains how he found out about it, which is just that someone posted some stuff online. Who cares? So
I mean, I get it. They're like, hey, like the person you pissed off put a bounty on her, basically. Yeah. So everyone's going to be looking for you guys.
Essentially.
I think Nick is going to come away being like, I hated this chapter. This, in my mind, is the best chapter of Kagurabachi yet.
So Chihiro grabs up Char and tries to run away. The sorcerer is still after them. But while he's running, Chihiro uses the black ability of his sword, cuts through a bunch of them as they're fleeing. But he sees them just start to like kind of like turn to mush and flow back up. And he's like, shit, they're not dying when I cut them down. Clone guy is like, I have witnessed the power of the enchanted blades in battle. They had the power to end that hell on Earth. Apparently, however, not all six swords have such great powers. Or perhaps this one's wielder is merely still immature. They start to swarm in towards him again, and Chihiro has to try and fight them off while they're all lunging towards him, all trying to also grab for Char as well. And as he is being attacked, he just thinks back to, like a memory of his dad. And there is a kind of cool moment, but it's a little bit cluttered, unfortunately, on this page, where he just thinks about them like spending time together, and then his dad being dead, and them being together, him standing over his dad's corpse, them being together, him standing over his dad's corpse. Like, he's just centered on it all at once. And afterwards, he realizes that he was under the effect of this other sorcerer's attack. I think they look a little too similar. They're dressed differently, but their hair looks very similar to me. But he cast some sort of like mental he Mangekyo Sharingan him. He made him experience some sort of illusion that to the point that he lost track of time. When in reality, outside of it, Chihiro only was under it for 4 seconds. And so they've also snatched Char away as well. And this new guy says, like, oh yeah, I specialize in psychological induction. When I'm close enough, I can call up people's trauma. So they're like, all right, this is the last surviving Kyonagi. Referring to Char. We're going to eat her? And the other guy's like, no. That stuff about eating the flesh of the Kyonagi is just nonsense. So what do we want with this kid? And they start to like grab onto her leg, and one of them says, the rumors were born out of this truth. And her leg starts like pulsating and bulging and bleeding, and then it goes away. Her leg's covered in blood, but it's healed. And Illusion guy says the Kyonagi clan does have special powers, and Sojo wants to make use of this somehow. This kid won't have a peaceful life for some time. So then he's like, all right, I should take this sword from this guy. And he takes the sword. Chihiro lunges at him with a backup sword, a smaller blade, a wakizashi. And the guy's like, wait, how can you move? And Chihiro says, that day is what drives me. You just made the reason clearer.
That line actually did eat. I was like, damn, all right. You actually look kind of cool after that.
Out of all the one-liners that we've gotten this week, thus far, yes, that is the best. He cuts off the guy's head. And that one seems to stick.
Yeah, I do like how it's just like you see the head go, and it's like a background shot, and you can see it like in the background, just shooting upwards.
He starts tearing his way through Clone Guy, slashing through him. One of them still has Char in hand, And he's like, hey, if you want the kid to live here, and Chihiro has like cut through him before he's even spoken the sentence. He cuts through the guy's head and his arm in multiple places before he can harm Char at all. So yeah, those guys are dead. And he realized, like, okay, so they're after Char because of her special powers. And also, he says to Char, you didn't want to tell me because you were afraid that I would take advantage of them. But just then, earlier, you were about to tell me because you thought you might be able to trust me. And then her stomach gurgles again. And he's like, oh, yeah, you threw up all your food before. Hey, here, you can have mine. It got a little squished. And he apologizes for what you went through, but she says, it's okay. And that's just kind of it. So I guess she's okay with trauma as long as she gets her food.
Yeah. I like this. I thought the action was really cool. There were some really nice visuals. I love these guys getting cut apart. I love the panel of like a bunch of them diving at him. And like, I didn't even pick it out at first, but yeah, another sorcerer jumping in there to touch him and activate his spell. I also like that moment where he's just like, how long was that? Like, how many hours just went by? And the dude's like, 4 seconds. That's it. So there's cool stuff. I just think it was like entertaining. I was Kagura-tained, as the kids say. They're all, they're going nuts for it.
I did not dislike it. Didn't really care too much for it, but whatever. I did appreciate that we got to the point of like, okay, Char is clearly going to be a character that is going to be sticking around, and this is good justification for that. It's not just that, you know, Chihiro can dump her off somewhere where she'll be taken care of, because she is going to be hunted by evil organizations, so she needs to constantly be protected in Chihiro's company. The stuff that we started off with her was good enough for, like, you know, a short story at the beginning. If she's going to stick around, there needs to be further reason behind that. This elaborated on that quite quickly. And yeah, it's very straightforward. It's like, oh, it's because she's got special blood and stuff, but it works.
All right, Nick,
yes.
Enough of that. Let's talk about my manga.
Right. Chapter 23, New Exorcist. Or as it's also called, New Ways Exorcist.
No! It's New Exorcist. The tattoo on my back says so.
All right. Chapter 23.
Then there's a big frowny face underneath it.
Chapter 23, New Scan did 8. So this... New Ways candidate. New Scan did. Never mind. So,
both me and Gakuro were confused. Like, what?
New has just barged into the captain's meeting at the high school and basically said, like, hey, Gakuro should be the new captain. Also on the color page, we see like that somehow Koga fell over while this was happening. Mm-hmm. I don't know how, but it did apparently.
Because the door was being opened very quickly, and she was probably maybe trying to listen in. Oh, hold on. Let me start giving you some behind the scenes. So,
all right.
I was just terrified here. My nose started bleeding. Actually, that wasn't a character choice. I actually started bleeding right there. So, I suffer for my art and my existence. There's a lot of suffering with Gakuro.
I always kind of suspected, but it's nice to have the confirmation. Thank you for that inside scoop. It's good. So Gakuro realized, like, oh, I've got a heavy burden.
Why do you make my voice sound like that?
No reason. So
why don't you make my voice sound cool and muscular?
All right, I'll try. Why'd you have to say something like that?
Yeah, that's more like it.
All right. So there's a flashback to Nue actually like filling in Gakuro on what she's planning on doing and like saying why they're doing this, which is a little bit weird because it still seems like he's being completely caught off guard by everything. Whatever. Yeah, so Nue's goal is to defeat the other 5 Hyo, and that's why she gave Gakuro her power. And when Gakuro learns about this, my whole body constricted when I found out. I was really unsure of whether I could help Nue, but it means saving Fujino and everyone else. I have to do better.
Now, the reason that shot was on my pelvis is because in that moment I was considering channeling my good classmate Pissman and considering pissing myself out of fear. But I couldn't get anything to come out. I was very pee shy that day. So I guess they just decided to leave that shot in.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that they gave you the opportunity to try something out, though.
And fail. Yep.
So Nue establishes, like, I have to be the first Hyo resurrected, which means I need Gakuro to obtain a certain power. First, I need Gakuro to become an elimination squad captain. And everyone was like, what? Because the power that she needs him to get is within Exorcist HQ. And Kuro's like, yeah, he can't do that because captains are super strong and stuff. And
we get a graph. We get a pyramid graph.
I'm going to ignore it. Nue says, there's another option, though. You could be nominated by a captain during a captain's assembly. I heard you can become one under special circumstances, but without the need of the normal requirements. They're like, well, there's no chance they'd select him. Plus, those meetings only happen in times of emergency, like when a captain's been killed. There's currently no reason to hold one. And Nue's like, no, they already are holding one. And it's at this school. And there's another reason why, which is the addition of another Hyo. It's like, but we...
She predicted all of this, Nick. It's cool.
But we learned all of this last chapter.
Yeah, but these characters don't know this. No. You have to explain it.
So they have to select a sixth captain very urgently. Moro realizes, shit. I took all precautions to prevent our power from being detected, but because Nue unleashed so much power, she must have broken through my precautions, so they sensed it and sensed her awakening. So was actually all part of her plan. She's crazy. Bruh. So in the present, Nue's like, yeah, how about it? And one of the captains goes, I mean, I'd never imagine a Hyo sending out a clone to nominate her own manager. So that brat there's your medium, right? Interesting idea. Give us an explanation then. And Nue's like, I don't have an explanation, because I only came here under Gakuro's orders. So she didn't tell Gakuro that she was going to do this. She told him everything else, and then didn't tell him, by the way, this is how we're going to play this.
No, Nick, it's very good. You see, the important part to the scene is she knows I'm a goober idiot. And if she didn't tell me anything, I would just ramble about nonsense. And the only thing they could trust is my rambling nonsense. Otherwise, it sounds like it would have been a trick from the Kyo.
I guess that Gakuro...
It's genius.
Because he immediately goes, no, that's not the case. No. Then Nue's like, oh no, he's saying otherwise, but it's true. Plus, that Moriyuki Fujino guy, who's a former Elimination Squad captain, apparently. Yeah, he tried to attack us today. Oh, really? Yeah. He was no match for Master Gakuro. Oh, you don't believe it? Come on in, Shiroha. Bring in the POW cart. And Shiroha has a little cart that they've got the chair that Moro's tied up in there. And Moro's not muzzled or gagged in any way. He's just kind of like sitting there looking...
This is the one thing I don't get. I don't get why he doesn't say that's not what happened.
I don't get it.
I was like, he kind of established, he's like, I can't do anything because like I'm out of power, so I can't stop you. But he also established, he's like, I am going to work against you. So I don't understand why he's not like, they're lying. It was her. She was the one. He's not that strong.
Yeah. So Nue's like, yeah, he came to try and kill my master's friend, and he didn't allow that. He one-shotted him and then said this. If this is the strength of a... Hang on, let me do like Nue voice. Now Nue doing Gakuro voice. Okay. If this is the strength of a former captain, then I could be one too. Yo, Nue, let's go reveal ourselves and crash that captain's assembly.
Oh, wow, you're really good at doing Nue's voice.
So Gakuro's like, why are you doing that? And she's like, yeah, this is the best chance of us succeeding at this. It'll work out somehow. Trust me. One of the captains goes, "I've heard enough," and she axe kicks the desk and says, "You got some big balls, you little bastard! I'll freaking kill you!"
But why?
Yeah. Then she grabs Gakuro by the head and says, "You command one of the Hyo? That's flat out amazing! But then tell me one thing. Did you know that the Hyo are the enemies of all humans? That's who you're commanding. You must have some power to control Nue, right? Show me. Here. Now." And Gakuro's like, "But I don't have any power to do that. I can't do this, Nue." Turns to look over, and she's just making a fucking thumbs up, not helping at all. Just throwing him to the wolves. So the other captains, meanwhile, are just like, "Yeah, this is kind of funny." It's like, do you not understand the claims that the Hyo has just made about this guy? They're just like all watching this other captain do stuff, and one is like, she is entertaining Nue's farce and targeting the boy. Is she trying to find out Nue's true motives and revealing herself to us? I don't know. Maybe she's just crazy. Maybe you're all stupid. So she's like, "All right, how about a new question? I guess." Gave up on getting Gakuro to answer the other one. "How did you win over Nue? Tell us about that." And Gakuro's like, "Oh, it's not like that." "Oh, how did you two get along? Tell us." And they're like, "This will be interesting. Why did Nue forge a contract with the boy?" And Igari's like, "If you lie, I'll kill you." And Gakuro's like, "We played... Sorry, Gakuro. We played video games."
Whoa, hold on! You're putting a little too much testosterone in that voice. Pull it back a little bit.
"We played video games."
There we go, right on the money.
So, of course, Igari's like, "Wait, what?" "Yeah, she hadn't seen anyone for many decades and was happy to have my company when I came to her. And we played a bunch of games." And Igari amazingly says, "Where's your proof?" Which...
This is my Pokemon deck.
"Yep. This is my card deck from when I dueled against Nue." And they're like, "Oh." And the older captain's like, "Oh, I've been pestered to play this by my grandchild. You should teach me to play later."
I'm not good at explaining things, but I'll do my... Like, he has to act pathetic even in that moment. Like, "Oh, I'm not good at talking about things, but I'll try."
And then Nue's like, "You know what? Why don't we just play now and I'll teach you as we play?" And they just start playing cards. And Igari's like, maybe she actually is friendly. I guess I will hear you out for a second. Tell us about your goal, Nue." This is wild. These are the most easily swayed people in the world. Like, "We have to stop the sixth Hyo who has awakened at this school, and she has come across all six of us most strongest members of the anti-spirit core, tasked with protecting the world against people just like her. Oh, apparently she serves this one very obviously not powerful guy and is obviously lying, but let's hear them out. Oh, they want to play a game. Let's play a game."
Yeah, everyone just goes along with everything. This plan is flawless and has absolutely nothing that would interfere. Yeah, it's bad. Again, I'm not sure why POW guy doesn't just say something like, "This is not how things are going. They're misleading you," or anything. Like, it's all just very dopey. But hey, we have Girl Pachi now, and people are probably super excited about that. 10 out of 10 chapter, Nick. Well, I don't know what else you could possibly want.
I mean, I was waiting for terrible shit like this to happen in New Exorcist again, so I'm happy.
All right, Nick, do you want to try some speed skating? Emphasis on the speed.
Let's figure speed skate. It's 2 on Ice, Chapter 5, Separate Paths. Honestly, the whole thing between Takun and Kisara is very simple. Kisara, really looked up to figure skaters, wanted to be a figure skater and stuff, and Takun was like her role model. He was 4 years older than her, really, really impressive, and she was not a match for his skill. And apparently she was really frustrated with herself because she couldn't match him no matter how hard she tried. And then eventually Takun comes over to her and is like, "Hey, look, he told me that." Because Kisara's like, he told me I only have a few more years in the spotlight, basically, because female figure skaters' careers tend to be much shorter than guys. And Takun said, that must have been hard to hear. Just literally cupped her face and like brushed her tears away and said, if only you'd been born a boy, Ki, which is the best thing to say to a child who is upset at the sex they were born with because of what it means for the rest of their life going forward. Yay! So
This story, in my mind, is now a trans allegory.
it could be, yes. And then he followed up with ahaha, I'm only kidding. But Kisara to herself is thinking like, I promised that I'd never say it. And then while I couldn't stop crying, he just tousled my hair and told me all about pairs, like he was reading me a picture book. Really talked down to me. But she learned about pair skating and realized like, oh, like I could like occupy this world, and she essentially was given a new hope in figure skating because like maybe she could find what she wanted to do in pairs. And it turned out he was right, even though she didn't want that to be the case. It was a curse, but it also saved me. And then at the end of 5th grade, she was hesitating about whether or not to make the switch from singles to pairs, and then Takun ended up relocating, left her behind. And our coach and the rest of the club went to the airport and saw him off. And when she saw him off, she was like, I'm not a boy, so I can't actually compete with you, so don't forget me when you're gone. And Takun told her, like, hey, we could compete together in pairs. And we finally see Takun's face for the first time as he's, like, giving her these parting words. Because Kisara asked, are you doing pairs? And he backed away from her. He said, I will be once I've finished preparing. And that was the words he left her with. So Kisara, in acknowledgement of that, decided she wanted to switch to pairs. In the present, she's relaying all this to Hayuma and says, look, if you put all the time and effort in, you've got the talent, you could go for the top of men's singles, Hayuma. Of course, he doesn't want to hear about this. He's like really excited to just pair up with her instead. And Kisara says, look, I think I finally understand how my coach felt, because there's value in pursuing singles. I got kicked out by my coach at the end of the 5th grade. And not only that, she basically got blackballed from figure skating because she was adamant about wanting to do pairs to fulfill that dream of competing alongside Takun. Literally everyone her coach told everyone, don't associate with her until she gets over this whole pairs thing. And yeah, like people are like, yeah, this is what happened. She was this very talented prodigy. That's why she suddenly disappeared from skating, because no new coach would take her in after that. Because there was that very influential person telling everyone to stay away from her and stuff. So Kisara says that she's bringing all this up, including Hayuma's prospective singles career, to him because, look, I wasn't given a choice by my coach, and I want you to have that choice. Because Hayuma's like, isn't your only option to pair up with me and compete without being part of a club? And she's like, yeah, but I need you to have that choice. I don't want you to feel obligated to do it. I think you should learn about the male skaters world, pairs and singles. After you experience both, then you can decide. I'm not going to take your choices from you. He's blown away by this, but he does agree to it. He is offered the chance. He asks if he can perform to the same song to La Strada, and they're like, yeah, you can do that. And so now Hayuma's at a crossroads, and so is Kisara as a result of that. The note that we're left with is, I'll walk this road alone after we walked it together, and after performing both, then I'll choose the path I want to take. And we get this very big 2-page spread of the two of them standing at the crossroads, with Kisara now separated from Hayuma a little bit. So, very pretty straightforward explanation of stuff that's going on. It definitely feels like the series is, yes, already in fast forward to have dropped this and just given us the full explanation of what's going on with Kisara. I am admittedly not very excited to see that men's singles performance because it feels like the entire thing, the series is called 2 on Ice.
It would be wild if he was like, yeah, actually, I think singles is where I'm going to stick for now.
I desperately hope that the singles thing lasts like 3 chapters, because if this series ends and we never get to see them do proper paired skating where they actually do moves together instead of just doing them side by side, I'm going to be upset, because it's like, that's what you said you were going to do. That we're going on what feels like a deviation from that and getting away from that focus.
Yeah. I'll keep my thoughts short. This is not my favorite chapter. I did have to like look up what like gold medalist ages were, and like they are right that like most of them tend to be pretty young, and there is a significant jump when you get to like paired skating. So like there's something interesting there, but there's also one of those moments where it's like, I don't know, sometimes isn't like the point of like shonen sports manga to be like, I'm going to defy the expectation.
Yeah.
Like Hinata and Senna are really short, you know, shorter than their positions usually would be, but they are going to prove against it. And I was like, okay, like I kind of wish this was just a story about Kisara being told that being a woman meant she wouldn't be able to compete that long, and her being like, no, fuck you, I'm actually going to be better than everyone says or whatever.
Yeah. It's good that another man has come along to be her savior. Anyway. The Elusive Samurai, Chapter 130, Kamakura 1337. Hey, it's the aftermath of the battle between Hojo and all of Ianaga's forces. They leave, of course. Ianaga's forces do, and we just get the aftermath of that. They've taken the Tsukimoto Castle. Now they get to go to Kamakura. Hooray! Hey, Sheena, we owe this victory to you. If you hadn't stopped Nagao, they would have annihilated us. Yeah, remember when that whole chapter was about her saving the day? That's what happened. That's what happened. That's what happened. Don't go back and check. That's what happened. And Tokiyuki goes to attend to his uncle, who is immediately like doing better. He's obviously very beaten up. He still looks emaciated and he's got wounds over his body and stuff, but like he's conscious and reacting to people and is like sitting up. And as he talks with Tokiyuki, you know, the like words start to appear on his forehead again. So he's gonna be okay, it seems like. Tokiyuki's like, oh, thank you, Lord Akie. He's like, yeah, it's all thanks to Akie. Cool. And Akie does some cool stuff and poses and stuff. Anyway, we cut away from there. Ianaga's plan do in fact work, because Uesugi is able to continue to gain favor with Ashikaga because of the sacrifice that Ianaga has made for them. Uesugi makes sure that Takauji, Ashikaga's son, writes a letter to make, give them favor and stuff like that. But he's still left thinking about the fact that, hey, Ianaga's gone, and he had bonded with him over the time that they had spent together and stuff. And he also reads a note from him saying like, hey, I eagerly await your completion of the strongest warrior from the underworld. I await. So it's kind of a nice little note of like Uesugi should be shown to be like human, that this affects him, because he's just the mad scientist guy otherwise. Meanwhile, letter reaches the Emperor, or rather, word has reached the Emperor, and he gives a letter to Akie's father, because Akie is very important. We need to also know his family. And they say they establish the Northern Court still doesn't know that Tokiyuki lives. And the Emperor's like, ha, fuck that Takauji guy. This will fuck him up. We cut over to Kyo, where Takauji is talking with some brown noser, who is like, oh, you're so great. Yes. Oh, everyone speaks highly of you. The masters speak of Nakasendai, but you're better. And Takauji's like, what'd you say? Oh yeah, the Hojo boy is alive and has joined the Southern Court. I have a copy of his capitulation here. Oh, you didn't know? Well, it doesn't matter anyway, so I didn't think there was any reason to tell you. And Takauji puts his arms around the guy while still holding the letter and starts bear hugging him and squeezes him. And he eventually squeezes him so hard that he also bends him over in half and explodes him. So the guy's dead.
Yep.
And Takauji's pissed off because he's just realized that Tokiyuki is indeed alive. And then immediately one of his handlers comes over and is like, "You're going to be late for a poetry meeting." "Oh, I've got to go." He's fine. Because he's like crazy and half demon possessed and stuff. Anyway, Tokiyuki is returning to Kamakura again. Goodbye.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff we've kind of gotten before. We've seen Tokiyuji kill somebody because he gets news he doesn't like before. We've seen a great many Akie speeches, so it's all fine. Nothing to really say there. Let's wrap this up with Akane-banashi.
Story 83, Chohan Dice. So Chocho has said that he will only hear out the requests that Karashi and Akane have brought to him if they play Chohan first, which is a game in which players guess if the sum of two dice will be odd or even. So he has given each of them seed money, 10 cards, and they're going to bet their cards on Cho or Han. There is no betting restriction. They're allowed to pass and not bet on each round. If they guess right, then they double whatever they've bet. If they guess wrong, then they lose their bet. The game's going to last 5 rounds. The player with the most cards at the end will be the winner. And also, if you run enough cards, you're done. So he has Akane and Karashi and the other Zenza, whose name I haven't memorized yet because he's just honestly just been an extra for everything.
I think you're fine not remembering this dude's name.
I'll get it if he ever starts doing anything important. But he's like, all right, all you get on one side of the table, Asa, you come and sit by where Akane was sitting next to me. Place your bets. And Akane is immediately like, I'm going to pass this round. Karashi starts off with 1, and the other guy goes 2. And Karashi is betting Han, which is odd. The other guy's betting on Cho, which is even. Cho rolls the dice into a little bowl, and he's like, all right, show him the numbers. And Asagao takes out the dice, and it's 2 and a 4, total of 6. It's even, which means that Karashi loses his bet. Unun! There's his name! It's right there!
Unun.
There it is.
Everyone loves Unun, Nick.
Yeah, he's doing great. Everything's going great now. He's 2 up. Hoo-hoo!
Things are looking up for Unun.
Yeah, it's great. So then he's like, all right, now is the time to get aggressive. I bet 4 cards on Han. Karashi bets 1 on Han. Akane passes again. It's Cho again. 6 and a 6. Ooh, boxcars. It's even. So Unun, you lost your lead immediately, and so did Karashi. So he's like, all right, I'll play it safe next time. He bets 1 card on Cho, so even. Karashi bets Cho. 3 cards on Cho. Akane passes again. So Unun, he wins this one. He gets 2 cards back, and he's like, all right, I think I'm getting it now. I think I've got the flow. It's been Cho. It's been even 3 straight times. Akane passes. Karashi bets 1 card. Unun says, I'm betting it now. 8 cards on Han. It's been even 3 straight times. The chance of 4 straight evens is only 6%. I gotta take my chances. This is not how probabilities work. Don't do this. It is the same every time. This is pattern recognition. It kills people. Don't do it. So they roll the dice. It's Cho again. It's 6 and a 4. Unun loses 8 cards in one fell swoop. Karashi only loses 1. Akane has not bet this entire time. And they're like, shit, the odds of this happening 4 straight evens, it's ridiculous. No. And Chocho's like, oh man, I'm rolling up a storm, hitting every number I want. And Unun realizes, oh, I'm in deep shit because I'm up against the born gambler, Chocho. And so Chocho is looking really ominous. And he's like, this is the last one. This is the 5th round. Place your bets. So Unun's like, can't be 5 straight Cho It can't be.
It can't possibly be. Yeah.
So he bets 1. He's not willing to bet his last 2 remaining, even though, honestly, what does he got to lose?
I was gonna say he doesn't. First and foremost, he doesn't care about the results of this. He is not going to study anything from this. But right. Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it doesn't matter. You can't win anyway unless they all bet and
all fuck up. Yeah. So he bets 1 card on Han, and Akane goes, "Okay, all my cards on Cho." It's been even Cho for 4 straight hands. She's betting on it again. So Chocho says, first you're quiet, now you're huge, huh? And Akane says, yeah, nibbling's way is just not my style. Are you sure? Guess wrong. It's all over. And Akane says, I'm fine. I figured out your trick. All it took was a little thinking to figure out. It's no wonder all your roles were Cho. We're talking about Chocho Konjakute, so everything is Cho.
This is the logic I used. I was like, yes, she's correct, because obviously his name's Chocho. He'd pick Cho.
It's gotta be Cho. So both Karashi and Una are like, because it's a pun, that's it. That's all. So Chocho says, Chocho rolls Cho, huh? That's a very interesting idea. So he reaches for the dice to roll. But Karashi says, look, can we just call it now? I know what the outcome's going to be, whether you roll or not. And Kain's like, huh? What are you talking about? And Chocho says, I didn't hear your bet yet. What's the call? And he says, 9 on Cho. And Karashi just tosses the dice out on the table this time. He says, you win. And since they're not in the bowl, they're on the table now. They're able to realize, wait a second. All the sides of the dice are 2, 4, or 6, all evens, which means it can't possibly be an odd result. So Chocho asks Karashi, like, how would you figure it out? And Karashi says, yeah, I was certain after the last round, because not only were all the results even, every single individual die was even too. The chances of that are 0.004% with regular dice. There's no way that could be the case. Also, you're someone who normally carries dice around, and you would have changed the dice to place the game.
You did very obvious cheating things.
You obviously cheated, and you told a story about cheating at dice. So it had to be loaded somehow. And so Chocho's like, yeah, perfect. Yes, this is a rigged game. I did it to gauge your mettle, to test your nature. The outcome doesn't matter to me. And Akane's like, well, then why did we play Chohan? And Chocho says, well, my personal theory is that tense, thrilling competition draws out a person's true nature. The calmness and smarts to see the winning path based on limited information. And you, Akane, though your logic was dumb. He says, it took spirit to bet on a gut feeling.
Oh, it was a smart decision.
She was right. You can't call her dumb. So he says, I like both your spirits. You pass. I'll teach both of you. And then Akane turns to Karashi, she's like, yeah! And she's like, no high fives. We are not the same. And Unun's like, Master, what about me? And he's like, you were a little too naive for your own good, but that's part of your appeal. You're fine the way you are.
Un.
So he says, like, yes, I will teach you, but I'm a really busy guy. So you guys are going to focus on Asa's study event for right now, and then we'll handle this later. And then Asa was like, oh, did you get that last second job lined up or something? But Chocho's like, no. With all that talk about your big Futatsume debut, I had an idea. I'm going to go and have a little talk with him. Is a fucking fantastic chapter.
It's funny. It's got good stuff in it.
I love the build-up. I love the very different reveals to, of course, draw the contrast between Karashi and Akane. And I love that our hero's the one who just has the very stupid logic that ends up being 100% right. It's like, your name's Chocho. Of course it's going to be Cho.
Yeah, that was my logic too, so I can't falter. Good chapter. Good time. Let's wrap this up.
That is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, everybody. Let's go over our favorites for this week. Tell me, Quinn or Gakuro,
Ah!
whoever, what was the best chapter this week?
My favorite series this week was New Exorcist, and my favorite character was Kakuro. That's not right. I wasn't the best character. How about Undead Unluck and Yugata? That's better.
I'm going to partially echo that. I'm going to say that yes, Yugata's definitely my character of the week because she was insane. But my favorite chapter was Akane-banashi. It was just the right pacing, just the right level of stupid. I really liked it.
The audience, by the way, picked My Hero Academia as their chapter of the week and agreed about Yogata as the character of the week.
All right, awesome. That is going to do it for the show this week, everyone. Happy Halloween to you all. If you want to have more spooky times, you can listen to all of our past episodes in which we talk about spooky things.
And if you would if you'd like to hear more Gakuro, pay attention because there's going to be a bonus podcast featuring Gakuro to some extent. It's a WMR list. We're going to be doing Gakuro stories.
Yeah. So check out the WMR Patreon for that, patreon.com/weekly manga recap. You can also check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, on YouTube at youtube.com/weekly manga recap. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, all sorts of places. You can also join the Weekly Manga Recap Discord server via the link wherever you're listening to this. We have a Google Doc that is accessible via there, maintained by Ninja X3i, where you can keep track of previous series we've taken as recommendations, check out stuff that people are suggesting we do now, ask a question for us to answer in a Q&A episode in the future, all sorts of good stuff. We would also like to thank Milo Jack Stillitz and Winston Del Cheddar for creating the opening sequence of the video version of Weekly Manga Recap. Steve Mann, who does occasional Tyler card artwork for us. His artwork is wherever you can find Steve Mann Art, is all that username, all one word. And we'd also just like to thank you, the listener, for making this a wonderful Spooktober, as usual.
Thank you so much. Now, of course, Nick, it's time to talk about what our next recommendation is going to be. I think Gakuro is going to let us know. Well, I've heard rumor. I've never read it. I've heard rumor of a series that's really good and has really good lore and like world building elements that I've never heard of, and I need to establish that to the lawyers.
Never heard of.
So we're going to be reviewing a series I've never heard of before called Bleach.
Never heard of. What, really?
Oh, have we done that before?
I'm asking if you're serious. That's all.
Have you talked about Bleach before?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. We'll do Yu Yu Hakusho instead.
Okay. I'm sure that whoever made Bleach has never heard of Yu Yu Hakusho. So.
No. All right, that's it. I don't have any more bit. This week hurts. I'm out of here. Bye.